Marty, we hear about celebrity breakups all the time,
Oh yeah.
but we have a new one here in Canada. It's the most recent celebrity breakup, and yeah, I mean, I guess maybe some people are sad about it, and some people are thinking it's probably not going to make any difference. What do you think? Jagmeet Singh no longer supporting the Liberals on paper.
I I'll believe it when I see it, or I'll see it when I believe it, or I saw the announcements. I saw his video. I think it's just posturing because for several reasons. But I mean, looking at there's so much to break down. I think we're going to talk about this for a long time today. Like we probably got 20 minutes to talk about this. Maybe show his video of him breaking up first, how he chose to break up
Oh.
the relationship, and then we'll talk about a bunch of factors.
So I have his video, and this is via Justin Trudeau's ego saying, "Sinister of sellouts, Jagmeet Singh has just announced he's ripping up our coalition government. Hate like this has no place in Canada. That's why I'm using the Emergencies Act to suspend all elections until this threat to democracy and my reign of terror has passed." Anyway, this is Jagmeet Singh's video about why he's breaking up with Trudeau.
Today, I notified the Prime Minister that I've ripped up the Supply and Confidence Agreement. Canadians are fighting a battle for the future of the middle class. Justin Trudeau has proven again and again he will always cave to corporate greed. The Liberals have let people down. They don't deserve another chance. There is an even bigger battle ahead. The threat of Pierre Poilievre and conservative cuts from workers, from retirees, from young people, from patients, from families. He will cut in order to give more to big corporations and wealthy CEOs. The fact is, the Liberals are too weak, too selfish, and too beholden to corporate interests to fight for people. They cannot be the change. They cannot restore the hope. They cannot stop the Conservatives. But we can. In the next federal election, Canadians will choose between Pierre Poilievre's callous cuts or hope. Hope that when we stand united, we win. That Canada's middle class will once again thrive together. In Canada, we take care of our neighbors. That's who we are. I've embraced that value my whole life. I'm running for Prime Minister because together we can and will stop conservative cuts. We can deliver relief and restore hope, fix healthcare, build homes you can afford, stop price gouging. It's always impossible until it isn't. It can't be done until someone does it. If we're together, nothing is impossible. And we won't let them tell us it can't be done. Big corporations and wealthy CEOs have had their government. It's the people's time.
It's the people's time. I'm glad he enlisted the soundtrack from the Pirates of the Caribbean, but I mean, it's just.
Oh, is that what that is? Yeah, yeah.
No, it isn't. It's
Oh.
very similar, but it's it's just
Like,
too funny.
it-
I mean,
it-
there's so much to break down in what he had to say.
There's
I
so
mean,
much, absolutely. I mean, but how delusional do you have to be? Like, can you imagine? Like, if when I'm prime minister, I mean, the fact that he's saying that, like go look at which comes back to why did this happen today, right? I don't think it's his doing. I really don't. I think his own party probably felt fed up with him and said, like, we're taking way too much heat because you're propping up the Liberals and it's hurting them. Because the reason I say that is, I think just recently in the latest poll, I mean, he's polling something like 11% of the popular vote. Not him, but the NDP, right? They're in fourth place. Like, it's the Conservatives at about 40, the Liberals at about 20, the Bloc at about 15, and then Jagmeet comes in at about 10. So yeah, there you go, thank you. And that black line with the little arrow tip at the bottom there, I put a trend line on the yellow, that sort of
going right
ends
to
at
zip.
yeah, it's going to zip
nothing.
at election date, absolutely, right? And so his party had to say, like, listen, we gotta do something because we're tanking. Because so I don't think it's his idea.
I know the
But
precise moment that it happened.
do you
Yeah,
go for it? Well,
right there.
right there.
You see that local 2251 Steelworkers Union?
Yeah.
A guy that went out of his way to tell Trudeau what a terrible job he's doing and that they're going to be gone in the next election. Wow, that sent shockwaves through everybody who would normally support the NDP. This is the NDP is the party of the union workers.
Yep.
This is where their platform is. Without them, they're nothing. And they're losing tons and tons of support because everybody knows that it's Jagmeet Singh that's propping Trudeau up. And he's doing it unilaterally, despite whether his party likes it or not. He's the one calling the shots. Their constitution says that they have to follow the leader, and they're following the leader.
No, absolutely. I mean, even but by the way, that red shirt guy, I hope they find his name at some point, because right now everybody just calls him the red shirt guy, and it was hilarious. That was funny, through the weekend, Thursday, Friday, watching the liberal apparatus trying to discredit that guy. They're going out of their way saying he was a plant and whatnot. Man, some of it was really.
I saw them say, well, you can't make 40%. You don't have to pay 40% taxes until you hit at least $120,000 or something like this.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, he's a United Steelworker. You think he's not making $120,000? Are you serious? That's middle class.
Totally.
The top tax bracket is upper middle class. That's who's paying the most amount of taxes in Canada.
And then they were trying to discredit him with the weirdest excuses, going like, he's not wearing boots, and his hands weren't dirty enough, and his lunchbox looked too new and stuff like that. I'm like, my God, you guys!
They have showers on site.
Exactly, like you and I worked in those industries
where you keep your boots.
Absolutely, and it literally showed how out of touch liberals are with. And not just liberal MPs, but liberal supporters are out of touch with blue collar workers. And now you're right. The
NDP as well.
If the NDP has, I mean, I went to 2 NDP leadership debates here in Alberta for the provincial NDP, and that was one of the cornerstones that they talked about. We have to we've lost the confidence of the workers. And and Jagmeet Singh, I mean, God, Jagmeet Singh, like, how would you describe Jagmeet Singh? Does he look like a blue collar worker, or does he look like a spoiled, born with a silver spoon in his mouth kind of guy, right?
Well, I mean, he's a Rolex socialist, right?
Yeah.
What do you want from this guy? And some of the rhetoric that's coming out, I mean, there was even something, what was this, on CBC News National, where they're talking about the universal basic income again. I'll show you a short clip from this. Pop this up on the screen here.
Basic income! With the basic income, I felt a sense of security because I didn't have to worry about not going hungry, and I didn't have to worry about being kicked out of my apartment.
It turns out that lady's suing them because they got off the program. She's looking for a paycheck. At the end of the day, I'll leave a link in the description for people to go watch that. I can't use too much of it, or else this whole video goes to the CBC. That's how this works. But this is the sentiment that's happening in Canada. Where is this coming from?
Yeah. So back to so I don't think Jagmeet did this. Do you think Jagmeet did this, or 50-50 between him and his party? This announcement.
Well, no, I think getting to the sentiment of that stuff is what I'm saying is this is Jagmeet Singh. This is where this is snowballing from. Stupid ideology of socialism. But I don't think he did it. No, I think this came from outcry from the party when that guy from the local union, right, the 2251 in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, Algoma Steel, it's been around forever, and they put pressure on, and they said, no, this has gone too far. You can't keep supplying this guy. You've said it that if they were going to force back legislation with the rail strike, force them back to work, that you'll cut the supply and confidence. They didn't then. And now this happens. Justin Trudeau's Marie Antoinette moment. Let them eat donuts. It was
they're
awful.
free. They're free. The donuts, they're free.
Yeah.
Free
Other guys
take them
like
home
the
for your
donuts.
kids. Yeah. No, I agree. So yeah, Jagmeet didn't do this. So the party said, you gotta break this this agreement and stop. You can't criticize Trudeau and then prop him up at the same time. So I think that's step one. Now, will he actually vote against him in an upcoming non-confidence vote? That will be interesting to see. I don't think that would happen because triggering this is to stop the hemorrhaging and hopefully regain a little bit of party popularity. But the NDP party, cannot go to an election right now. Not just because of the way they're trending in the polls. I think they're broke. I think they're not trending properly. If they went to the elections right now, it might actually be devastating for them. So,
well, this is what everyone's getting excited about. They're like, oh, the supply and confidence, it's over. That means that there's going to be an election soon. I don't think so. No. And I like this tweet. I pulled this one out from Ian Runkle the Bailey from YouTube. He's a fantastic content creator, and we'll probably be talking about him a bit later too. Prediction. I hope I'm wrong about, by the way. We've ended the confidence and supply agreement, but we're still going to vote in lockstep while insisting we're totally independent and pretending that we're so angry at them. That's perfect. It's a perfect way to say it, because that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to lockstep vote with Trudeau on everything. It's going to be as if the supply and confidence agreement's still in place. It's just now they're saying that they're separating, and
we still have and we still have a perfect opportunity for a non-confidence vote. It's amazing, but we still don't have a budget. The budget's not approved. The budget that came out in April is still not approved, folks. Like, it's I don't know. I mean, that's going to be an interesting one, because now put yourself in the conservative shoes. If you're Pierre, what do you try to present? What do you put forward as a vote to try and get a non-confidence vote, right? I mean, the budget is one. Is it something to do with immigration? Is it something else? Like, it's
what about the one from MP Barrett? That one that came out. It was the motion to say that anyone who's caught in corruption
should have at least a $50,000 fine. That'd be a great one. I mean, that'd be a good one. Michael Barrett, the minimum fine for lying to a House committee. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm sure they got. I mean, they got a bunch. So we'll see
because that was the one that I'm holding Michael Barrett to, because I like it. I want, when they're in power, to run that bill again, because I know they're going to lose. It's not going to stick right now. Yeah. But when they do get power, because the Conservatives are going to get power, I'd love them to put that one through. Now, mind you, I don't know if it'll get past a Trudeau.
Oh, you're saying
Senate.
hold it now. You're saying try to put it through under a Liberal government, but if you're unsuccessful, try it again.
As a conservative,
yeah.
I want to hold that to him to say, hey, remember that bill that was awesome that you brought forward? Let's try that one again. But so Justin Trudeau was asked about this at a conference, press conference, about the whole supply and confidence thing ending. And well, of course,
he was in Newfoundland, I think. Yeah, he was in Newfoundland. Is where he got asked this question. Yeah,
Gov.exe is corrupt. Captured this one and posted it online.
Prime Minister Trudeau, you no longer have the support of the NDP. Your party is trailing in the polls, and the Conservatives are calling for an election. Is it time to send Canadians to the polls?
I traveled across the country this summer. People talk to me about making ends meet. They talk to me about the high cost of rent and the need for more housing. They talk to me about the environment and climate change and the impacts of it. And these are the things that we're focused on. I'll let others focus on politics, but I will point out that I really hope the NDP stays focused on how to deliver for Canadians, as we have over the past years, rather than focusing on
the past 9 years.
Have you had an opportunity to think about what your fall will look like now? Will it be just a regular return to the House of Commons, or do you now have to start thinking about maybe calling an election before something happens?
I am not focused on politics. I'll let other parties focus on politics. I'm focused on actually delivering the things that Canadians told me this summer they need.
But with that said, you have to focus on politics at some point. When you look at what you're doing, the announcement today, for example, the Bank of Canada rate dropping, it would seem like these would be positive signs that maybe you would want to go to the polls with. So when do you start thinking politically?
delivering for Canadians is at the heart of what politics is supposed to be about. An election will come in the coming year, hopefully not till next fall. But in the meantime, I'm not letting down Canadians, and I'm going to stay focused on them.
Oh, he's totally focused on staying away from politics at the moment because he knows
he's a broken record, man. I mean,
it's done.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, what do you do? The polling numbers are not lying. You were showing them in that tweet earlier. I'll pop that back up because it's just, it doesn't lie. It doesn't lie right there. The Liberals are tanking. They're
actually,
tanked.
I think it was today. So 210 seats is what is where the blue line is for the Conservatives, but there's an error bar, right? So it could be as low as 179 or as high as 233. 236 would be a super majority, which means you have 60% of the vote. But anyways, today was the anniversary of Brian Mulroney's victory, I think in 1986, where he had a super majority. The last super majority in this country was on this day about 34 years ago or something like that. So yeah, those are big numbers. I mean, if you look at the error bars, like imagine 233 for the Conservatives, let's say on the low end 50 for the Liberals, and then Jagmeet Singh could find himself with as few as 10, right? And I've said this before. It's not a crazy scenario to imagine that the Conservatives could be in power with the Bloc Québécois as an opposition. That would be
The official opposition.
Yeah, that'd be so unusual. But yeah, I think the Liberals didn't get a lot of mileage today, right? I mean, Trudeau was trying to do his announcement. I mean, that press conference, he was in Newfoundland, basically announcing a lunch program for kids, right? It was
pat myself on the back now that 9 years of him, 400,000 children's parents can no longer feed their kids when they go to school. I mean, why is that a congratulations? That's actually, that should be a big L for the
he pats himself on the back for offering food stamps to Canadians, lunch programs for Canadians, cheap dental care for people, like all things that normally would be able to provide ourselves if we had
No, but this is how out of touch he is. He was talking with a union worker at a steel mill, who is upper middle class,
making good bucks. Yep.
That is upper middle class. And when he gets in a confrontation with him, what does he go to? He says, "Well, I'm giving you free dental care."
No, he didn't even say that.
Anybody should know.
Yeah.
If anybody should know, it's not him that's eligible. You have to be very, very low income to even be eligible for this free dental care. You're not going to be upper middle class getting free dental care on this program.
Well, actually, that union worker had a great answer to that. He's like, he said what you just said. He said, "No, you're not giving me free dental care. I pay for it through work." And he's like, "I'm paying for my deadbeat neighbor." I think he even used the word deadbeat. "I'm paying for my deadbeat neighbor down the street who's not working. I'm paying for his dental care." So he put it back on. Trudeau was uncomfortable. I mean, Trudeau made these funny faces. He had his hands in his pockets. And then, he's almost like looking around to his staff going like, "Somebody help me. Like, please, pull me away." And look at that picture. Like he was, I wonder if his, no, the only way, I mean, that's his security guard, right? The only way one of his security guards would pull the guy away is if he moved towards him. But I don't think the security guard would pull him away just because he's having a hard time answering a question. Unless, of course, he has a secret code. I don't know. Like we saw another
picture. This is a perfect angle, though. I like this because, it's the angle where you actually get to see what the audience, where the photo op's not usually looking, and it's looking at Trudeau and all of his minions that are orchestrating the photo op, not the average people that are usually around. It's all empty except where the camera, his camera, is looking. You know what I mean?
Well, to me, and to me, that was more evidence that this was unscripted because he's done this lately a lot. He's doing his little speech to basically an empty audience. Like, the cameras make sure he's talking and there's actually nobody behind there because the workers don't want to sit there with him. They just don't give a shit about him anymore, right? And then it was done, and a couple of workers were streaming in to go to work, such as this guy. He was starting his shift, and then Trudeau just thought, oh, I'll just walk over to him since there's nobody else, and I'll strike up a conversation. And it completely backfired.
Big backfire, huge backfire.
Yeah.
And I think this backfire has, been, I think, if not the catalyst, the straw that broke the camel's back with the NDP coalition, and especially because he was a local union worker, the biggest demographic for the NDP across Canada.
That was an interesting thing, right? People, the influencers were trying to discredit this guy because they heard him talking, right? During his talking, he basically said, I make good money, but I can't make ends meet. And people tried to discredit him, going, well, he's a steel worker, and based on what we've heard him say, he makes $120,000 a year. He should be thankful for sharing his wealth with other less fortunate Canadians. And the reality is, that's a sad state in Canada. There was a time where making $120,000 a year as a steel worker in Sault Ste. Marie was a good job. But don't fault the steel worker, and don't call him selfish for complaining about his life. Yeah, the life of everybody working in Canada, $120,000 these days is a middle income salary, especially if you have an expensive mortgage and a couple of kids in school. Like Trudeau's disconnected. He's totally disconnected. And
absolutely disconnected.
Yeah.
But I think he is going to stay in because he's got his plan, right? His plan, and this is perfectly laid out by this parody account here. Again, Justin Trudeau's ego. Follow it on Twitter. Let me be clear. I'm stacking the Senate with radical far left activists for one reason: to block the upcoming Conservative majority government from governing. I can't win in the next election, but I can rig the system to prevent them from doing the things Canadians want done. And this is something I fear. This is something I actually worry about with the way that the Trudeau has been stacking the Senate, because as you know, bills go through the Parliament, and our representatives vote on these bills. So that's based on who's been elected, right? Yep. So if we vote in a supermajority of Conservatives and we give them a mandate to govern, this is a way of interfering with that mandate that's democratically elected. We have these senators that can make amendments to bills. They can turn bills away and just scrap them completely. Yep. They have the power to do this, and they're unelected. They're appointed by the PMO.
Exactly. And they had a purpose. That was somebody, the fathers of Confederation thought that a Senate would be a nice way to balance
sober afterthought.
Afterthought. But to your point, there are Senate vacancies, and they're appointed. So 2 senators from Manitoba were appointed last week, 2 Fridays ago. And then last week, 2 senators from Alberta were appointed. And they are radicals. And let me tell you one quick thing. Here the Senate is appointed by the Governor General on advice from the Prime Minister. I get that. But here in Alberta, for 30 years, we've elected senators. What we do is every 3-4 years, we have during one of our elections, we also accept candidates for Senate, and then we elect them. And then we know that Trudeau the Prime Minister doesn't have to pick from them, but we hope that they do. So we have a list. After they win an election in Alberta, we call it senators in waiting. So at any given time, we have 3 to 5 to 6 senators in waiting who've been selected by Albertans. And up until Trudeau, Mulroney did it, Harper did it, Chrétien respected our choices and would go to our pool of elected senators and pick one to appoint. But Trudeau's never done that. Trudeau has never picked from our select pool, and he picks real radicals. And this week he picked a really crazy radical. Now there's hope that these radicals, just like in Manitoba last week, he appointed Charles Adler, a former CBC journalist, who in his last few years, Charles had become pretty opinionated and radical and made some pretty negative comments about First Nations. So the last hope now is that they've been selected and appointed, but they might not still pass sort of like some reference check. But you're right. Trudeau is stacking the Senate. He's not just stacking the Senate. He's stacking the Supreme Court. Supreme Court judges in this country are also appointed. They're not elected. And I think 7 of the 9 Supreme Court judges right now are Trudeau appointees. 80% of senators are Trudeau appointees. So yeah, his legacy, we're going to feel the negatives of his legacy long after he's gone.
Yeah. And this is what I'm worried about, you know, bills not being able to go through, just being stymied immediately. And this goes against, again, Trudeau talks about the backsliding of democracy and all this stuff. This is very anti-democratic, this whole concept of having a radical Senate, when the will of the people is to move towards the Conservatives and that point of view, to have these radical leftoids be at the helm. And it calls into question, is there mechanisms to make the Senate an elected position where it's not appointed?
No, that's that. We've talked about the triple, what do they call it? The triple E Senate, elected, effective, and I don't know what the other E is, but no, there's, you know, Senate reform, voting reforms, no. Where that's no government wants to tackle that one. Not on the horizon, anyways. So yeah, interesting.
Well,
yeah, and this all so but before we get off this topic though, I think Trudeau could get defeated. Technically, he could get defeated in a non-confidence vote, such as the budget or whatever. Especially if the NDP allow their voters to vote with their conscience, I could see him being defeated. I think Trudeau is talking a good story, but he looks nervous when he's asked that question all the time. And I don't think, and when Trudeau says, I expect to run again, I think he's been told already, you're not running again. So it looks like, to me right now, it looks like he's just putting on a brave face, but behind the scenes, the Liberal machine is working real hard to try and find his replacement. And I'm honestly surprised that their retreat in Halifax ended last week and nothing came out of it. Like there were, you know, we had some good things, right? You and I and Darshan and Kirk had the show on Friday. I mean, that was pretty much the best thing that came out of the Liberals' retreat last week in Halifax. It was a reversal on immigration and slowing it down. But I was expecting a cabinet shuffle. I was expecting a lot more, and nothing. So if they ask for volunteers, like who wants to be the next prime minister, nobody in the room put their hand up, like, nor why would they, right?
Because you're not going to win. Why would you want to do that? But the only people retreating, I guess, are Canadians, the average Canadian, against the criminal, the rising crime in this country, because it turns out we don't really have a mechanism for us to even defend ourselves. And this is something that's become more and more at the forefront because of the rising crime. Again, this is happening more and more and more all the time. Recently, we had Doug Ford, who was questioned by a reporter asking why the Ontario government isn't defending law-abiding citizens by granting homeowners provincial rights to defend themselves or property against home invaders, which is crazy to think people are just invading into people's homes, not when they're away, but while they're home, perhaps sleeping or even while they're awake. This is a portion of that clip here.
You know, I use this example. Many doors get kicked in, guns are put to people's heads. Terrifying experience. And guess what? The guy's back out on the streets to repeat the same crime he did the night before, because we have a weak system, weak criminal system. You know, you try to do this down in the States, two things are going to happen. You're getting caught and you're going to jail for years, or the homeowner is going to shoot you, one of the two. And I'd rather keep guns out of communities, and I'd rather really support our police that we're putting a lot more money
backpedals
into guns and games.
Immediately on that one. I just want to show people the sentiment out of the United States. This is the kind of sentiment that
that's a good one.
Received information in social media that some of the criminals were going to take their criminal conduct into the neighborhoods. I would tell them, if you value your life, you probably shouldn't do that in Polk County, because the people of Polk County like guns. They have guns. I encourage them to own guns.
Yeah.
And they're going to be in their homes tonight with their guns loaded. And if you try to break into their homes to steal, to set fires, I'm highly recommending they blow you back out of the house with their guns.
I love it.
You know,
love it.
and you and I are going to sound radical, but I don't understand why people aren't more like this. Like, why would anybody think that it's perfectly normal to let somebody break into your house and not defend it? I don't understand that side of progressive liberal socialist thinking. Like it's because it's not just politicians, right? There are people who think like that. They go, oh, just, you know, turn the other cheek, and it's only property. That's one of the ones I hate all the time, right? It's only property.
It's my property.
It's my
Let me
property.
be the judge of that.
Yeah, it's my house, man. Like, don't come into my house. You know, it didn't start with me. If I'm sleeping and you come into my house, I don't have to decide what your intentions are. It's irrelevant. I don't need to know your intention. You're in my house. Like, end of discussion, you know? Did you see there was a clip in I think it was on it might have been Alberta. I didn't watch it. I didn't pay attention to where, but the car that got pulled over and then a dog sniffed the fentanyl, and some guy, a Canadian, it's either in Vancouver or Alberta or somewhere, but apparently this guy had 24,000 fentanyl pills in his car, and there's nothing they can do because it wasn't due process. Like, absolutely, like he got stopped for, I don't know, a speeding ticket, and the fact that a dog sniffed something is completely inadmissible.
Yeah,
Like,
they did a charter challenge on that, and I was pretty upset when I heard that, because, like, oh, okay, so a hardened, you know, drug dealer is the first one to get the benefit of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms since COVID. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All challenged,
not Brian Peckford or anybody else. No, that's
right?
moot. We don't test that. Yeah.
No, we don't test that. But okay, this guy, the dog didn't sit down or wag its tail in the right way on video, so the judge dismisses that guy, and he's fine. This is some of the worst stuff that's happening in our country. I can't talk too much about that on this.
We'll get demonetized or censored anyways, right? I mean, it's one of those topics. Like,
it is one of those topics. But I wanted to keep going with this. So this is a clip that went viral, and it was on a show called Zoomer, Zoomer. Yeah. And CCFR put this one out there, watching highlights from the show discussing self-defense laws in Canada, including what's reasonable versus permissible to defend one's self. I'm not going to play the whole clip, but the beginning's pretty telling.
What does the law say about self-defense in Canada? When are Canadians permitted to use force to defend themselves?
Right. Well, in Canada, we have the right to defend ourselves, our loved ones. We have the right to defend our property, but it's solely for the purpose of defense, defending yourself. You have to be reasonable. So a judge...
Wait a minute, what's reasonable?
What's reasonable is...
someone breaks into your home in the night.
Right. Well, if it's a bunch of teenagers who break into your home, they don't have any weapons, and you go after them with a golf club, that's no longer reasonable. You're now using excessive force against those teenagers.
But how are you supposed to know that they don't have any weapons?
You don't. Oftentimes, you don't. And you're right. It's a very difficult situation. But you have to remember, at some point, a judge is going to scrutinize your behavior and what you did. And, you know, some of the questions a judge is going to ask, for example, what was the nature of the threat or force? How imminent was the threat? Did you have other options? Did you have to go at the person with a baseball bat or a golf club in that scenario? They will look at what other options were open to you, right?
What other options are open to you, Marty, if somebody comes, 4 teenagers come into your house?
Well, I'm gonna go to my night table, and I'm gonna flip open my list, and I go, okay, and I'm gonna start. No, I'm not gonna start asking those questions. I'm gonna react, right? I mean, I'm in my underwear. It's night, and I hear loud banging. Yeah, it might be kids who are just scrounging around trying to find booze out of my liquor cabinet, but I don't know. I'm not taking that chance necessarily, and I might come out swinging with a baseball bat or a golf club or something. Well, they're going to have to deal with my 4-pound Yorkshire Terrier anyways. Jasper's going to come at them, and
that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But so Runkle of the Bailey, he did a YouTube video following up on this, and he covered the whole show, and it's a long video. It's 57 minutes long. And he goes over the points that they got right and the points that they got wrong. If you don't know, Runkle of the Bailey, he's a litigator, a lawyer in Canada, and he specializes in firearms and, you know, weapons type legal stuff. So go check him out. I'll leave a link in the description down below, especially of that video, because he clarifies some stuff that they actually get wrong in this. He says they're clueless. He's not just talking about the lawyer, but he's talking about some of the other people on the show at the time, where they were going into, you know, the different tools of the trade, where, you know, yeah, the lady had pepper spray out and he says, no, that's totally illegal. Turns out, no, it's legal, but here's how the law's written. If it's
it's a very interesting channel. I've followed him. I've listened to many of his stories. The problem, I trust him. I trust him, like, you know, 99% of the way. But even when he talks, you realize that our gun laws and our firearm laws in this country are so convoluted that you kind of just, what you get from listening to him all the time is like, you got to try and avoid getting in front of the judge at all costs, because it's so freaking complicated. The judges make
don't
mistakes.
talk to a police officer.
Don't talk. Yeah, judges make mistakes on this topic all the time, which is scary. Like, you know,
and he does say that in this video. He says, you know, this guy, he's making mistakes clearly in the law, in this show, but one day he could be a judge, you know, and then he can make those mistakes in judgment, which is terrible for whoever goes before him in that case. But he points out, like, with the example of the pepper spray, the way it's written in the law, any you know, device that will harm a human is how that's labeled out in the law. So if the device is designed to go after a dog, it's totally legal. If it's supposed to go after a bear, it's totally legal. But if you're the purpose of it, if it's sold and the purpose of it is to go after a human or harm a human with it, then it becomes illegal. Now, this is where it gets weird. If you're carrying it with the intent to defend yourself against a human being, the carrying of it with that intent is now illegal. But if you intend on carrying pepper spray because you're scared of dogs, and then you just so happen to be in a confrontation with a human and you use it as an opportunistic moment in time, then now it all has to do with, like, prior
because
intent,
in that circumstance, in that circumstance that you're describing, the pepper spray is kind of like having a golf club sitting there because you just finished a round of golf, right? I mean, speaking of pepper sprays, like, I have 3 of them sitting on the shelf right here in my office because I go hiking all the time, so they're nearby. But it's actually on the topic of.
Well, I wanted to get into this before because I have this sort of idea, and this popped in my head, and I'd love to hear from lawyers in the audience, anybody that's out there. I'm wondering if this is a problem with the police in Canada. Because here's how the scenario goes in the United States. Castle doctrine. Somebody enters your home, you shoot the guy. The guy doesn't survive. The police show up and they're like, what happened? You explain. Guy entered my home. I shot him. He died. They say, oh, okay, nothing to investigate here. In Canada, I believe they're required to investigate nonetheless. And then it goes to the legal writ. So many cases in the United States, like, charges aren't laid. You don't go through the justice system. None of this happens because there's no point. It's done.
Yeah,
so
well,
I'm wondering if this is a policing issue.
Yeah, well, I think, like, well, for sure, it's a policing issue. It's also a concept of familiarity, right? I mean, if I'm a police officer and I show up in Texas, and there's been some sort of incident at a house, I'm going to ask a couple of questions. I'm going to say, whose house is this? The guy who's still standing with a gun, okay, and who's the guy who's dead on the ground? I don't know. He doesn't live here. So I mean, you know, to me, there's circumstances like that where the investigation's pretty quick. But I've also watched enough of these reality shows to know that sometimes it's not, you know, when you're the poor cop who shows up and there's 2 parties that are both, let's say, without guns, right? I've seen it at bars, right? Like, cops show up to break up a fight in a bar and everybody's bloody. The poor cop sitting there going like, okay, well, who's the victim and who's the instigator? You and I would think that, yes, when it involves firearms, it should be pretty straightforward, but I guess it's still thankfully a rarity in this country.
So, but my question, and this is out into the ether, and everybody who possibly could know the answer to this. do police officers in Canada have a discretionary power? Can they look at a scenario and go, nothing is no crime here. This is clearly self-defense, or are they required to continue press charges, do the investigation, collect all the data, and put this forward to the legal system where you get trapped in this for who knows how long?
Yeah, I wouldn't claim to know. I wouldn't know. I mean, I wouldn't know. Like, you're right. My understanding is most of the time it's not the police investigate, and when in doubt, they just sort of like handcuff everybody and take everybody to the station and let somebody else figure it out. The police themselves seldom lay charges, right? If they show up at a call because somebody, I call because I hear noise at my neighbor's house and the police show up, they're going to investigate. Rarely are they going to sort of lay charges or anything like that. I mean, at best, they'll try and figure out who's what, separate the parties, and then advise one of the parties saying, you look like you're a victim to us. Our recommendation to you is, would you like to lay charges? I can arrest this person, that kind of thing. But but back to guns,
Mm-hmm.
I hunt, and yes, the gun laws in this country are so freaked out, so complicated, that I go over the top. When I jump to go hunting up north with my friends, I put my firearm in the box, I put a trigger lock on there, I close the box, lock the box, put the ammunition somewhere else. And I often, I show up in camp and I'll have buddies that go, hey, you don't have to do that. You could just keep them separately this way. I'm like, dude, I'm not taking a chance, man. I'm going like over the top when it comes to trying to comply with the firearm legislation in this country, because they're so convoluted. They're just convoluted, and they change. All laws change, right? All laws change. Like, do you know where you're supposed to go find out about a new law? It's called the Canada Gazette. So there's this, when the government of Canada passes a new law, it's published in the Canada Gazette. Now, you and I will also hear about it through the media and stuff like that. But there are some laws that get changed pretty frequently. And, and suddenly you get arrested and it's like, well, your headlights are yellow. They're not supposed to be yellow. They're supposed to be blue. Like, well, how the hell am I supposed to do that? Like, apparently you and I are supposed to read the Canada Gazette fairly regularly to make sure we stay on top of all the,
because ignorance is not an excuse under the law.
Totally.
Yeah. Oh, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Hey, last thing on gun laws. Let's. I heard recently, and it sounded a little bit bullshit, but Alberta is getting ready to issue apparently a new Bill of Rights, rights and freedoms when the legislation sits. It's one of the things that Danielle promised, and copies have been leaked of what's being proposed. And if what I'm seeing is what I've seen, the leaks look very legit. They come from, you should bring in a guy named Leighton Gray. I don't know if you've ever had Leighton Gray on your podcast. So Leighton, the Gray Matter podcast, he has his own podcast, but apparently Leighton is a lawyer who helped draft Alberta's new Bill of Rights. And in there is more protection for property rights for Albertans, and there are very more lenient gun rights, so including the right to carry. I mean, it's one of those things, I'll believe it when I see it, come into law. But apparently Alberta's taking an interesting path towards granting more rights and freedoms to its citizens, or entrenching them in writing. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. I'm going to look him up, and I just found him, and I'll see if he wants to come on. That'd be amazing to have him on.
Yeah.
That would be really good. And then, what else do we have in the news today? Well, we have the Bank of Canada. The Bank of Canada has come out, and despite all recommendations from realistic people with their heads screwed on the right way, went the other way. And they went the political route, and they've lowered the interest rates again, another 25 basis points. And here's one clip here. This is gov.exe. He's kind of trending on today's show. But breaking, the Bank of Canada says that they're concerned about inflation falling too much, and more rate cuts may be on the way. Tiff Macklem just admitted that they're not interested in letting prices fall, even as 25% of the country live in poverty. This is economic terrorism.
Whoa, say that again. Like, or are you going to play the video? Like, is he actually? I wanted to
I
see
missed
this
it.
today. I didn't see any of Tiff's commentary because I was so distracted by the Trudeau Singh announcement. But
Well, here we go.
okay.
Today, we lowered our policy interest rate by 25 basis points to 4.25%. This is the third consecutive decrease since June. Inflation continues to reflect the push and pull of opposing forces. Overall weakness in the economy continues to pull inflation down. If inflation continues to ease broadly in line with our July forecast, it is reasonable to expect further cuts in our policy interest rate. But shelter price inflation is still too high. It remains the biggest contributor to overall inflation, despite some early signs of easing. At the same time, with inflation getting closer to the target, we need to increasingly guard against the risk that the economy is too weak and inflation falls too much.
Yeah, it'd be horrible if those housing prices went down.
Well, I mean, he's saying a couple of interesting things, right? So he's fundamentally saying that inflation is coming down because the economy is slowing down, which is it's self-correcting. That's exactly what's, you know, we've talked about this many times. I mean, the price of airplane tickets are coming down, not because of something that the Liberals did that was miraculous. Nope, it's simply because people can't afford to go traveling. So at some point, the airline industry that has all these planes sitting there has to do something to attract people and get them into those planes. So prices come down, but he's saying it clearly. Prices are coming down in inflation because the economy is cooling down, which is absolutely not what Freeland and Trudeau and all the other ones are saying today. I mean, they're
saying that everything's great, everything's fantastic. But here's where the pressure's at. Here's absolutely where the pressure's at. Here's an article from Better Dwelling saying Bank of Canada warns of excess supply. Inflation may slow too much. Why is this? Well, it's because people are putting their condos and stuff in Toronto and Vancouver on the market, and nobody's buying them. This is the thing. Excess supply is people don't want to lower their prices because they're going to take a huge hit because everybody's expecting the prices of real estate to keep climbing up and up and up and up. This is not the way an economy can continue to function. We're relying too heavily on one particular commodity, housing, real estate.
Well, you know, a free market is a supply and demand. So on one side, you got opposing forces. So yeah, when the government makes it easier to borrow money by lowering interest rates, then what they do is they increase the demand because people have artificially got more money. So it's a push-pull thing. So yeah, lowering interest rates could make the housing crisis worse.
That's what I wrote here. I wrote here shelter place inflation, which is housing inflation. I don't know why they're coming up with new terms, is still too high.
Yep.
So let's artificially lower interest rates, prop up the real estate bubble, and prolong the suffering. This is what he's saying. This is exactly what he's saying. This is paraphrasing, obviously, because he doesn't want it to sound like that.
Well, and
that's what's going on, and it's a political decision that he's doing this for.
And it's a political decision, but it's obvious that the Bank of Canada pushed back because imagine, like, when's the time where most people sell their houses and buy housing, right? Everybody lists their house in January, February, hoping to buy one by March, April, and then move in in the early months of summer. The housing market in Canada naturally slows down at this time of year every year because once your kids are back in school, then you go, well, the house didn't sell, or if you were thinking of buying a new house, you put it on hold again. So his interest rate announcements, Tiff knows that it's a bad idea. He's giving in to political pressure, but at least, thankfully, he announced them in June, July, August, and not in February, March, April. If he had done this in February, March, April, people would have gone berserk because everybody would get excited. And like people don't do the math. They go, oh, interest rates are down by 0.5%. yay, I'm going to go and now I can afford that $625,000 house when I couldn't only afford a $600,000 one last week.
Where do you find one of those? I don't know.
Exactly. I know.
I'm in
That's
British Columbia. There is no $600,000 houses.
That's the
doesn't even
silliness.
exist.
That's the silly. I mean, God, I love my daughter, but even my daughter called today. She's like, Dad, what does this mean? Like the interest rate went down 0.25%. I'm like, honey, it means that if you had renegotiated, if you had waited a month to negotiate your mortgage, it'd be $13 a month cheaper today. So don't worry about it too much. Like the 0.25% is, like it's
no, but the realtors are going to make a big deal out of this, and this is the whole concept.
The realtors
are this up as, wow, this is the best opportunity to buy. We're at the top of the market. We're at the top of the market.
But then,
there's
if
nowhere
you're
to go but down.
If you're a listener who's thinking of buying a house and you think this is good news, go look at the auto industry right now and what they're doing. They're defeating what the bank is doing, but they've already been offering 0% loans for buying cars. By the way, I want to say this too. I said this today. Just because the Bank of Canada lowers its prime interest rate doesn't mean every other bank follows in lockstep with them, right? There's lots of banks that still go, whoa. They know they don't want to blow their brains out, and so they'll continue to try and offer a little bit higher interest rate, take advantage of the margin, and let the Bank of Canada take the loss. I think, man, I look forward, like I'm one of those sadistic guys. I look forward to the Bank of Canada's quarterly report, which the next one's coming out in about a month.
How much more are they going to lose in this one than they did in the last one?
Yeah,
they lost for the first time ever in the last one, and now.
Well, they lost last year, but they've lost every quarter. I think they've lost
every quarter, yeah.
9 quarters in a row.
First time they ever lost.
Well, they were doing something very weird, and they've been doing what's called the overnight repos or whatever. Like the Bank of Canada is lending like 16, or don't quote me on this, like $1.6 billion a night, and then rebuying it back the next day. Like they're doing these rapid trades every night, trying to take advantage of their own minuscule little margins to try and minimize their losses. The Bank of Canada is in deep trouble, man. Like Tiff,
yeah, they are.
Tiff, I'm surprised Tiff is Tiff, hang in there, Tiff. You'll get a point. No, actually, you'll never get a job as a senator. You're too nice and you're not radical enough.
Not radical enough.
Yeah.
Oh man, but this is where we are at. We're kicking the can down the road. This is no win by any means. What the market needs is movement. Right now it's stagnant, especially in the real estate market. There's too many people who are holding the bag, and they're waiting for their realtors to sell that off so that they can be out of the market and out of the danger zone. Because if the market crashes and you're on the hook for this big loan, you're still on the hook for that big loan. It doesn't matter if the equity goes into negative equity. You're going to lose money, but you're still paying off a loan, and that's terrible, and that's what people are possibly looking at if there's going to be a crash. And I honestly think if the real estate market were to crash, it's going to crash really hard. It's not going to crash easy.
Well,
it didn't go up softly. It went up like a rocket.
It'll crash. Well, we saw one in the U.S. in 2007, right? I mean, we avoided that in 2007. The Americans had a massive crash, but then it did recover 2-3 years later. It didn't recover to where it was, but it settled out, and things are better. I mean, the average of, probably whatever, 3-4 million Americans lost their homes and took a big giant hit, but then 10 years later, 30 million Americans benefited from that correction. So we've talked about this. I mean, the Band-Aid has to come off and somebody's going to get hurt. Like there's no way at this point, there's no win-win situation. There's no way to save future homeowners and past homeowners and present homeowners. Somebody's going to have to pay. And that's why, and that's why in Jagmeet's video, when he's, he knows that Poilievre, when he wins, inherits a mess. And part of Poilievre's mess is he's going to have to make things better. And it's going to require some things that are unpopular. And when Jagmeet says, we're not going to do that, well, then he's basically saying if he's elected, he won't do the hard things and he'll make things worse. So, boy, we cannot afford, I don't think I shouldn't say not never. I mean, we elected an NDP government in Alberta, so anything's possible.
Yeah.
But
Well, I'm hoping that people have read this book, this one right here, that'll help us out through the coming election. And don't look at the NDP as saviors, because it's been tried. It's been tried, and well, I don't see their policies coming through for anybody at all.
no. I mean, what's their favorite excuse to every young Marxist? Well, it's never been done properly. It's like, well, people have been trying it for 100 years and it's never been done properly. So maybe, man, there's some interesting stuff though, right? Like we see how fragile. I'm surprised that communism stays so popular. And I'm also surprised at how fragile democracy is. Like, I would have thought that capitalism and democracy would be sort of a natural evolution, that societies would want to go towards there. But COVID and other events have showed us that that people like to be ruled and like tyranny and like to not be in control and not have to make decisions for their lives. And I mean, I look at what's going on in Brazil right now. Like, you got next door, you got one country like Argentina that just comes out of this nightmare, and you got Venezuela trying to come out of the nightmare, and then you got Brazil just diving in head first into the nightmare. I'm like, God, like, does nobody travel anymore? Does nobody read a book? Does nobody learn? Like, that's not going to go well for Brazil. Like, they're literally like, who in their right mind would try to cancel Twitter? Like, you know, like.
Well, wait, that's a fast way to wake up their population. You reckon?
Yeah, no kidding. Like, you know, yeah, no more Twitter for you, no more Facebook. Boy, Elon's going to make a fortune when he finally finalizes his what do you call it? His X phone. What's he going to call his phone? His Starlink phone or something like that? Like, Elon's going to, now it's all making sense, right? Everything that Elon's doing, it's a little bit, it's a little bit, he is fundamentally what do you call it? He's a good person. You know, he's definitely curious. He's a bit of a humanitarian, but he's also a capitalist. I mean, everything he's doing, to me, is brilliant capitalism. I mean, buying Twitter, having Starlink, all of that together, Tesla, holy smokes, man. Like, he's
my impression of Elon Musk is this, hear me out.
Yeah.
I think Elon Musk, he has a bunch of ambition and he wants to do a bunch of things in his lifetime. He knows he has a short amount of time to do it. He wants to try to get people up in space, perhaps a moon base, a base on Mars. That would be a tremendous accomplishment, and all the things that come with it, because there's all this infrastructure that has to happen in the process of this. And he knows that the market economy and liberty is the only vehicle to get him there. If the world goes totalitarian, all of the division of labor and all of the benefits of average people having the access to universities, and then there are so many people on the earth, and there's more than there ever has been, which means that there's way more human potential in human capital to have the most brilliant engineers, but not just the most brilliant engineers, but the most amount of the most brilliant engineers, the most brilliant physicians, the most brilliant physicists, and all of the things that are required for the things that he would like to do. And in totalitarianism, the success of those people does never come to fruition. But under a market economy, you have the greater chance of having all of those people with those expertise, or the potential to have the expertise, come to fruition and then be a contributor to the goals that he's after. And I think that this is those are his selfish interests, and it requires liberty and a market economy for those.
Yeah, devil's advocate would say that things like the Manhattan Project was an example of bringing a lot of brilliant minds under almost sort of under tight control. The Russians accomplished some pretty interesting things when it comes to the space programs and stuff like that with their system. But you're right. Ultimately, though, nothing beats pure free capitalism. And at his core, Elon, he wants to try some really cool things. He's got some cool ideas. He wants to try some cool things. And well, he's well positioned. I mean, I don't think whatever he's trying to do could have been done even during the Manhattan Project or with other concerted effort. I mean, what he's trying to do just shows. Well, actually, we shouldn't forget he is funded in good part by governments, but hey, he's a cool guy. Like, bring him on, man.
I mean, why
like,
would you, if the government is giving you a grant, why would you turn it down? I mean, you're a fool to turn down the money that. Put it this way: if the government's going to give you money, you're getting some of your tax dollars back, and that's
it's something I've been criticized for doing personally and through business. I agree. Like I work for businesses that did apply for grants, and people was like, "Well, that's kind of, aren't you a capitalist?" I'm like, just like you said, yeah, I'm a capitalist, but I can't be so ethical and so moral that I forego benefits that are offered to other people. You're right. Like
no, you're getting your tax money back. Is
exactly
what you're getting. Why would you pay into a tax system and then when they're offering it, you say no?
That's on my bucket list, man. I want to go see. I want well, two things on my bucket list. You interviewing Elon, I think that'd be awesome. But I want to see. I want to see a space launch. I want to see one of Elon's. Not a launch. It's not the launch that fascinates me. I want to see one of his rockets land. I want to see one of his rockets land. Yeah. Would you go to the moon? Would you get on a space rocket? Would you get on top of a big rocket?
Maybe not the first one. Maybe not the first one.
Yeah.
Once they're doing it all the time and they're really safe, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm a bit fascinated by space, and I always find that whole concept of sitting on top of a rocket rather daunting. Like it's you know, sitting on 11 million pounds of fuel. That's crazy. I wouldn't do it. Just like I wouldn't jump.
Ask someone from agrarian societies of the past if they would sit on something that's got a combustion engine and 4 wheels and
goes 100 miles an hour.
100, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's almost, for future people, it's almost an equivalent. I want to end it off with this because it's a great meme. This one I put on the channel just the other day, and it's pertinent to the conversation right now. And it's the people on the right side of history are usually fighting for freedom and liberty, not censorship and re-education camps. So I think you can litmus test, look at what people are fighting for, what is the goal, what is the end means that they're trying to do, and judge whether or not they're doing the right thing. They're the good guys or they're the bad guys.
Yeah, that's a perfect ending. Like we talked about with Brazil. Like if I'm a Brazilian, no matter what the government says, like when I say, why won't you let me look at Twitter, and my government says it's for your own good, I'm like,
nope.
Yeah, no, find that one hard to believe.
Marty, where can people find you?
Marty Up North on Twitter and Marty Up North on YouTube. Find me on Twitter, folks. Actually, the algorithm's been throttling me lately. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm doing something wrong. I'm too critical of conservatives. I need to go back to being critical of liberals. Like, shame on me, man. I get a lot of shit for that. Like here in Alberta right now, it's been 1 year of Danielle Smith's leadership as her premiership, and I'm not entirely happy, and I'm complaining. And I have daily emails and texts and tweets from people saying, Marty, can you tone it back? Like, you're not helping anyone. Somebody said, you're not helping anyone but yourself. I'm like, how can holding my politicians accountable help no one but me? I don't get it. So yeah,
get used to it, because when we get a conservative government, we're going to be railing on them just as much.
Yeah, we're not going to. You and I aren't going to stop broadcasting and tweeting just because Pierre Poilievre's in power and John Rustad's in power and other conservatives. No, I'm willing to bet it won't be the same kind of gong show as Trudeau. But then look at Ontario. I mean, if you and I were living in Ontario under Doug Ford, we'd probably have fun every week.
Oh yeah,
still,
yeah. It's going to keep going. It's going to keep going. Anyway,
cheers.
We'll see everybody in the next one.
Cheers, folks.